Hey guys, it's your favorite Carlos in the whole wide world. I'm just recording this video right now because May has been messaging me. Congrats, by the way, May, to becoming a super host. May's been right now at a point where she's looking to expand and do some joint ventures doing short-term rentals. So after she sent me a few questions, I thought, hey, rather than going back and forth in the DMs, why don't I just record a video, post it on Wayne's groups? That way all of you guys can have access to it, because a lot of them are really great questions that I think everyone would be able to find value for. So really quick, you're looking at one of the back ends for my admin account. The reason why this strategy is so important is because Airbnb has a bit of a punishment system for people who break their rules or get accusations. The way it works is they attack the account, or they put suspensions and punishments on the account that committed the crime. So if you say something that sounds sketchy or that they don't agree with, they will suspend your account. Now, you don't want this to happen to an account that has listings, because all those listings will get suspended. So the way you do it is essentially you set it up so you have an admin account, and so this account actually has the listings on it, and then you have various co-hosts, and these are people who are able to assist in the property itself. Now, in our case, with me and my wife, we have one of our primary admin accounts here, and then we have two co-host accounts. One of them's for Sarah, one of them's for me. These are actually the ones that we have on our phones. We are the ones that we use for communication. They have full access, so they can do everything except like changing payouts and a few other little things. So you have to keep an eye on your admin still. But these accounts are the ones that, if anything ever went wrong, they would be the ones that got suspended, not my admin account. So that's how that works with that. And from there as well, if you're ever wanting to get into co-hosting, what you'll do is you'll set it up so that way you have different payout splits. Now, I was asked about co-hosting. I have a couple people that I do co-hosting for, and there's two strategies. So the first one is that you can have it on your own profile. So if you look at my admin profile, one of them, this one looks really, really good. It's got like a ton of reviews, and any bookings that we get put onto this account will instantly get that boost in the algorithm. It will help them stand out quickly, and also you're already tied to a superhost account. So that's one benefit. One of the catches, though, is that if, for example, let's say the person was a flipper and they're looking to get out of their bookings eventually, well, if you cancel a booking, it's a major hit on that account. So it might be more advantageous to set up your client with their own co-hosting account, so that way you can burn it and sacrifice it in the future. So in that way, that if you have to cancel a booking, you end up not having to deal with as much damage. So for example, if I dig in here, let's see if I can do that without getting in trouble. So if I go into Insights and I click on Superhost, which everyone seems to care about, you can see what you're graded on. You're graded on your ranking, your response rate, which means this is how quickly, if you respond to people within 24 hours of them messaging you. There's a minimum number of stays, but also your cancellation rate. So if you cancel a bunch of bookings because your flipper sold the property, you're going to get hit hard, and it's going to damage your co-hosting. And like essentially, when you look at this, you need to have one cancellation per 100 bookings. So that's a lot. That's a lot to do. So I would highly recommend that if you have an account that you're expecting to have to burn at some point, you make a separate account for that one. However, if it's somebody who's looking to be with you for a long time, then you'll want to set it up so that way you have your own account there, and then on their profile, it'll show up like this. Hosted, in this case, by the admin account. The co-hosts are listed below for this one, and then the account, when you click on it, they're able to go in and they're able to look more and more about you and stuff like that. Meanwhile, if they click on another one of your accounts and they look at your co-host profile, you can see that I have more bookings on here, or listings on here, than I had on my admin account. If you go into it, you'll see one of my other admin accounts. So one of them is Carlos and Sarah. The other one is Sarah and Carlos. And if they click on it, they can see the separate listings and all the other listings within it as well. So they can see a little bit more about it. So that's the way I like to structure. That's the way I set it up. And then if you look at the actual profile itself. The reviews go all onto the admin profile. So if you have and this is the reason why we set up this second account, is that we knew that some of these units would not perform as well, and we didn't want to risk Superhost on our main account. So we set up a secondary account so that way all the listings that went into that one would potentially be ones that we could burn off and not feel bad about because the account isn't holding our premium properties. So I hope that answers that question. In terms of hosting, is completely unregulated. So the only other thing I would recommend in Alberta with RECA, and any realtor here can correct me, is if you get into property management, the biggest thing is you're able to collect payments and then pay them out to your to the landlord. And so that's kind of like the rule of thumb. If they feel like you're not collecting the payments, you may not need a license. It's complicated. I have no idea really about what I'm talking about. But the big thing that was emphasized to me is make sure that you're not collecting payments and then remitting it to the property owner. Instead, in this case, you can see here, I send it all to the property owner. In this case, it's a pool account because this is a house that we joint venture. So it all goes to one account, and then I take a cut. So my cut gets taken out, and then that's how that goes in terms of that structure. So that way I get my share, they get their share, and the only thing I do is then I bill them for the cleaning expenses or any additional expenses that come up. So that's how you can keep it a little bit more clean.
So I hope that answers your question about the back end, how to structure things on the Airbnb system itself, and a little bit more about the intricacies with co-hosting. I have a couple more questions that I'll quickly blast off and answer for you. The first one is, I've only ever managed my own. How do you structure a partnership? So that, simply put, it's just a joint venture agreement essentially. And there's a little bit of things as well. You could talk about how when you structure your contract, if you're getting ownership of the property and your property partner in it, then set up the full joint venture agreement, stuff like that. If you're just being the manager, just essentially doing a management contract. So put out clearly, especially when you're doing anything with management, clearly what your responsibilities and your expenses are and what their responsibilities and their expenses are. So for example, with us, we take care of in-house all maintenance under $100. So if it's just like a light bulb getting switched out, or if it's anything like minor being tweaked and fixed, we just eat that cost. Come on, CN, you're ruining it for me. I'm in the middle of recording, and guess who calls?
You are called for duty as engineer in straightaway through freight service on train.
So now that that's done, so essentially lay out what your responsibilities, what your expenses are. If you're paying for streaming services, we provide that and all that stuff over on one side. And on the flip side, all the expenses that are going to your property owner. So obviously maintenance, repairs, lawn care if you're outsourcing a third party, things like that. You need to put that out clear as day, who's responsible for which. Because at the end of the day, when someone trashes your place, your first place you're going to go to get compensation is air cover. And that's going to, most of the time, air cover will cover most of your expense. But after that leftover money, are you the one paying it or is the property owner paying it? And get that in writing. So that's the biggest thing I would say to protect yourself. What I do when it comes, now your next question was, do you ask them for X amount of money to furnish and a list? So so a couple of my joint venture partners have essentially said, just go and you make the property look as beautiful as you can make it, which is awesome. I love having that free reign. Actually, my favorite part of being an Airbnb host is the actual putting together the properties. I used to always say about $5,000 per room, give or take, but nowadays with inflation, it's really more like $6,000 per room. So if you're doing a studio apartment, expect to have to pay $6,000. If you're doing a 3-bedroom house, it's going to be 18. If it's an 8-bedroom or 6-bedroom house, it's going to be probably 36, because by that time you've got typically 2 living rooms to furnish. You've got a lot more bigger beds that you got to put into bigger rooms and stuff like that. That's how the expense scales up. Now, it's not an exact science, of course. You can be a little more frugal in some aspects if you have more time, or it can be more expensive if your competition is really steep. Obviously, if you're doing a mansion, that's not going to work very well. And if you're doing a tiny little studio, 300 square foot studio apartment, you probably won't need as much expenses as that. So that's typically how I do it. And then for the couple of people who I do consulting for, where they actually pay me just to teach them how to do everything, I literally just give them some of my Amazon preset wish lists and then tweak it a little bit here and there depending on their decor style. So that's typically how I do it. You can do it with your clients. I know other co-hosts in the city, they'll typically say, are you going to furnish it? Would you like us to recommend somebody to furnish it, or like interior designer to furnish it for you, or would you like us to do it for you? And then they price things accordingly, because some people, they want to have the fun of owning the property and being able to pick the stuff and things like that. Some of them, they just want the best ROI they can get, and they don't want to have to think about it at all, so they'll pass it off to you. Your next question was about damages of the property. Who deals with it? You're going to be dealing with it as the co-host. You're going to be documenting it. You're going to go through all that. Maybe I'll do a video if people are interested on how to file an air cover claim. I know it's something that's really daunting, but it's actually super simple. And if it does end up coming to insurance, that has to be filed by the property owner. You are not in the position where you can file an insurance claim on a property you do not own, at least in Alberta. You will have to get all the documentation and give it to your client, so that way they can go and turn around and file with their insurance company, assuming it's covered by their insurance. So make sure that they have insurance that covers short-term rentals, and don't lie. Be brutally honest. This is one area where insurance companies will look for any excuse to deny your claim. That's why I had to go get a custom policy, so that way I was completely covered, getting just a straight up umbrella policy and stuff like that. You need to make sure that your client has insurance and that they file it. But your first thing before you even touch that, preferably don't ever touch it, but before you touch it, file with air cover. That's your problem. You're going to be the one who's managing the property. You need to learn how to get really, really good at air cover. And your last question was, do you have any cleaners you would recommend? I do. Send me, just comment down below what area of the city you're in. I'll either recommend another company or tell you I don't really have anyone in it. There's some really great people. So I hope that answers all your questions, man. Congrats again on being a super host, and I hope that if you have any other questions, feel free to message me and I can make another little video for you. And take care. Love you guys. If you have any other, if anyone actually has any questions, you can feel free to also message me, and I'll do my best to put a video in it. If you don't want to ask it in public, that's totally cool with me. And I'll post it here, or I'll post it in my group, and then we'll go from there.